I think another revelation I had while I was doing this is realizing that the actual answers were with the individuals themselves. They just needed maybe reassurance or revalidation, or just through probing with questions and working it through and breaking it down together, coming with that solution. But they tended to be the experts in their own domains, and therefore the answers resided within them. Maybe they didn't know that, but as part of the conversation and delving into it and really understanding what they wanted to get, the outcome that they wanted to get out of it, made me realize that actually they're actually better equipped at the answer than perhaps I am, because they're closer to the problem as well.
Hi, I'm Sehaam Cyrene. Welcome to the Leaders Who Coach podcast. I teach you how to coach your team and generally have better conversations. You can now go on your own coach leadership growth journey by subscribing to Leaders Who Coach AI Enhanced. It's a self-paced course and it's truly affordable. It's a monthly subscription. So when you're done here, check it out at leaderswhocoach.ai or coachlead.co. Both will get you there. Today, my guest is Nisha Kagdadia, actually a graduate of one of my Leaders Who Coach programs that I customized for Publicis Sapient. Now, Nisha is a financial services executive with over 20 years of experience at Citi, HSBC and Lloyds. And today she leads the strategic client partnerships at Publicis Sapient, working with some of the most recognizable names in financial services and insurance, with the aim of driving growth and turning transformation into real commercial outcomes. She is also passionate about coaching the next generation of leaders. And I'm very excited to have her here because I think we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what this feels like to be a leader who coaches. Welcome, Nisha.
Thank you so much for having me, Sehaam. Really looking forward to the next 30 minutes.
Brilliant. This is going to be fun. So why don't you share a little bit about yourself and just tell us who you are?
So I'm Nisha. I've been born and brought up in Spain, worked my career in the UK. I started off in investment banking and now work within IT consultancy. I did the course with Leaders Who Coach about a couple of years ago, and I'm quite excited to be on the show with you today so that we can talk about what the experience has been like, the before and the after.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that. And the program was called Leading Through Change and Ambiguity. And so it was a version of Leaders Who Coach that you and your cohort members went through. And I put you through your paces with it.
You did indeed.
With the coaching practice. One of the things that we were talking about before we hit record was how the conversation feels different, how a coaching conversation with one of your direct reports or even peers actually felt different, awkward maybe at first. Why don't you share what that journey has been like for you?
So doing the transition from having your one-to-ones in a certain format and then introducing it in a coaching format is awkward at first when it's with the same individual you've been having one-to-ones, because it is a different format. And what is vastly different is that you end up doing less of the heavy lifting. So the individual is suddenly not expecting that, because they're expecting you to come with the solutions. They present a problem in the one-to-one session and they're expecting you to break it down into actionable steps, and you're not doing that anymore. So that misalignment, or from what they're normally used to, it feels a little awkward because the way that you're speaking to each other changes and you have to start from scratch, even though you've been speaking to those individuals day in and day out for the last few years. So it felt a bit awkward. It felt very awkward to keep quiet and really listen and not interject with all the ideas that are popping in your head and trying to solve the issues for them, and really biting your tongue and letting them come up with the solutions themselves.
Yeah, it does. It definitely is a different mode, isn't it? And the intention being to be inviting, to allow them that space, to hold that space really for them to expand on their thoughts. And often it's creating the opportunity for being able to voice things that you don't really get a chance to voice anywhere else. No one holds that space to help you think deeply about something that's either, challenging to you or, you're stuck on. So yeah. And one of the things that you shared with me is that now it feels really natural. Why do you think that is? What's happened since starting practicing that sort of coaching mode?
I think what feels natural is that it's become the norm. So before I would actively be prompting with certain questions, and now those questions feel quite natural. They come into a conversation by themselves rather than previously I'd be thinking, well, tell me a little bit more about that, or what's underneath that. And it did feel a little unnatural. I think that's definitely helped. I think it's also helped by the fact that I don't feel disingenuous anymore. Right. So when I come out of the meeting, previously I thought, well, that was really easy. I haven't come away with any of the action points. So I don't know how helpful that was. But when I see the results, and it's been a couple of years now, and I've seen the people that I'm coaching do really well, and I see that it's down to them. It's down to them coming in and showing up for each session with a clear idea of what they want to discuss, and then working it through with them, and then they going away with the actions. It's far more powerful and effective than what I was doing previously, which was maybe a little prescriptive in terms of the solutions and the actions to take. What's also really helped in the past few years is really understand where they're coming from. I thought I knew them, but it's only through really actively listening that I've really got to know them. And that's been quite interesting when I truly believed I did know them. Actually, I didn't.
And that's fascinating. So there's a few threads in there that I want to pull on a little bit more and stay with. It's that you talked about this feeling like in this new format of conversations that you really didn't do very much, but and that's a really common thing, but that's after overcoming the challenge of doing the heavy lifting previously, right? And trying to come up with the solutions and, as you say, be prescriptive and direct them to do things a certain way, which has limited opportunity for them to really own and create an emotional connection with, because it's not their idea. So your ability to hold that space reveals actually the work prior to that you had to get your head around was the not being prescriptive, not giving the answers, but actually just holding the space, quieting our own minds, right? Of all these ideas and have you tried and I did this and that worked, but quietening that side of things and just being really present. And that's what you're talking about. It's just that by slowing down, being present, listening. And because you're listening deeply, you mentioned the sort of questions naturally coming out of the conversation because they're really obvious questions, and you know what you're probing for, you know what you're trying to unlock in someone and what to listen for as well, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of emotions. Do you feel that? Have you felt that in getting to know people, those things you're able to pick up more?
I have, and I've also noticed that I go into these sessions quite excited to see what challenge we're going to work with and where we're going to end up. I don't go in these sessions anymore thinking I have to come up with a solution, it's expected of me, or dreading that I'm going to come away with a lot of things to do when I've already got a heavy workload. So no, I look forward to these sessions, and I've really enjoyed seeing the progress, both of the people that I'm coaching, but even of myself growing alongside with them. So yeah, I really look forward to them and not with dread as maybe I did previously.
It's interesting that, isn't it? Because I feel once it's like getting up and presenting in front of an audience, you don't know your audience. So because you don't know them, we can feel quite anxious or fearful, right? But when we do get to know our audience, which is kind of a nice technique when you are presenting, is just to warm people up, talk to them first before you get into your material. Some way of creating a connection so they feel more like a friend than a stranger, right? And you can relate what you're saying to your audience if you've invested that time by asking them questions and getting them to be involved in it. It's like that in your one-to-ones. I think there is that dread of, I've got to solve their problem for them, and also not really knowing them that well. Whereas the investment that you've put into actually just holding space for them repeatedly has moved it into a space where you talk about actually being excited to meet with them again and, see where they're at and what they're going to bring this time and how we're going to work through it. It's a very different energy, right?
It is. It's really different. And I think another revelation I had while I was doing this is realizing that the actual answers were with the individuals themselves. They just needed maybe reassurance or revalidation, or just through probing with questions and working it through and breaking it down together, coming with that solution. But they tended to be the experts in their own domains, and therefore the answers resided within them. Maybe they didn't know that, but as part of the conversation and delving into it and really understanding what they wanted to get, the outcome that they wanted to get out of it, made me realize that actually they're actually better equipped at the answer than perhaps I am, because they're closer to the problem as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that makes me think, what's the difference to you as a leader, and what's been the difference? What has that given you to be able to be in these conversations in this way?
I think on a selfish side, it's given me time. So it allows me to pursue my own ambitions and my own goals and be able to have a much better work-life balance where I'm not burning the midnight oil because, I've got more things stacked on my plate. And then in terms of the individuals and what I get out of it is we're collectively growing, and therefore we're collectively growing the business. So that is shared amongst a team rather than an individual. And I don't feel that pressure as much anymore.
Interesting, isn't it? Yes. So more time for yourself, more time to think, and less anxiety, less stress around prepping or anticipating a requirement from a meeting, but actually just being willing to be present and seeing what that individual brings. And I think also what you've set in motion is more ownership by your direct reports for their growth, for their thinking, realizing they have choices. And that is incredibly liberating for both yourself in terms of time back, but also for your direct reports to feel like they have control over how these conversations go, or their choices. Yeah.
I think it's also down to trust. As time has progressed, it's trusting that they can do it, and also from an individual that they are being trusted and they genuinely do have what it takes to do whatever they need to. That trust comes through. It can't be taken for granted. So through these sessions, I think we've allowed ourselves to be vulnerable. We've really listened to each other, and that trust is being fostered. So the quality of the conversations that come through week by week, month by month, really start showing up, particularly times where it is quite stressful and you are meeting deadlines and things aren't going as planned. And that's when that trust that's maybe been banked from previous months and across the years really, really comes into action.
Right. You've laid the foundations for being able to get through some rougher patches, right? Some difficult and more stressful times, more pressured times. And that's your consistency, right? That's the consistency of showing up in this mode. And our direct reports need that. They need to know that we can show up, we can emotionally regulate ourselves, and we know we've got a way, a methodology or a way of being through these more pressured times. And so just that in itself removes so much ambiguity for them, right? Because they know, yeah, this is tough, but I know if I sit down with Nisha, I'm going to be able to work it out. It'll be something that we can nut out, and she'll give me a perspective on that. How do you, I'm intrigued, how do you challenge your direct reports? Because that's an element of coaching as well, right? It's when we notice some incongruency between how they're behaving or thinking and what's important. How do you do that?
I think the way that I do it is through questions. So rather than, I've seen some things happen where I'm like, I wouldn't have done it that way, or have perhaps, how could they have missed that, for example? And I have to bite my tongue and say, what were the things that you took into account when you came to that decision? Could it have been done a different way? What have you already thought about? Just constantly, rather than just making a very quick judgment, trying to hold back and ask and keep asking questions until we get to the root of what is actually being said, what is actually not being said in that meeting is also very telling. And that kind of I know how to then move towards asking questions. I have screwed up throughout the sessions where I've been maybe too direct, and the why doesn't sound very right in that session. But I will hold my hands up when I'm like, and that didn't come across the way I wanted it to. I'm sorry about that. Or I'm actually really worried about this outcome, or where we currently are. These are my concerns. Do you share those concerns? And just constantly speaking is the only way forward.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that. I love that you mentioned, because we all mess up. Sometimes we just feel so emotionally strong or charged about something, and we don't always filter, or we can't, because of our emotional feeling about it, we actually can't access parts of our brain that might help us express it in a more diplomatic, in a more effective or useful way. That happens, right? That's just normal being human and absolutely allowed. But it's the how we do I guess, to steal from therapy, it's how we repair that in that moment and just say, yeah, hang on, let me back up a little bit here. That kind of came out a little bit harsh. That's not what I intended. But what I like that you did there was you shared that actually it came out that way because I'm concerned or I'm worried about it. So it's the pressure that spoke.
Yeah.
In that moment.
I think it's also because these conversations happen regularly, you've messed up when at the next time you connect, the dynamics it just feel off, where someone's normally really chatty, then more reserved, the eye contact isn't there. And then you're like, bugger, I've really messed up, but I'm not really sure. But something's happened, something has shifted, and maybe that trust has been breached. Let's kind of rekindle that. And I think it's really important that when you are a leader, that you do show your vulnerabilities. You're not perfect, because then that means that it's not expected of others either. We are humans at the end of the day. We do make mistakes, and it's coming together and being transparent that you can actually solve for it. But if you feel that you have to hide it, that's when you've got real problems. So I think, when you're constantly not taking relationships for granted and checking in and really listening and being present, it makes life easier in the long run.
And it's, I wrote down as you were talking there that how critical it is to address something that didn't go to plan, that wasn't your intention, because trust can be quite a fragile, delicate thing, right? Just because you do have a good way of being, it only takes one instance of something not flowing quite as we would like, or a breach and unintentional, being a little bit not thinking in the moment, or being a little careless because of our own state, which again is natural, right? But it really only takes one event for things to be off. And if we don't name it and find or seek out that opportunity to actually address that issue, it stays.
Yeah.
It stays in that space, doesn't it? And it's as long as it remains unspoken, and the longer it remains unspoken, the harder it is to come back from, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I have an example of one piece of feedback that I got was in the initial days. I had been arriving a few minutes late to each session, and the person I was speaking to felt undervalued. It's like, you can't make it on time. It means that you don't value these one-to-ones. And that was furthest from the truth. But I could see it from their point of view. And so now I make sure that when I do have a session, I've got like a little bit of a buffer so that I'm not late. And it is not great to hear. I think I'm punctual, but it's not great to hear someone pointing out a flaw in you, and you just take it on, and you notice that by showing up, it's literally showing up on time, listening, not even though there's so many things that you have to do, just really being present for that half an hour that you've connected with someone. And I see that for myself. I've got someone that I connect with every Friday, and despite how busy he is, he's always there. And it's receiving it makes me value it so much that I'm conscious that I need to do the same.
Yeah. It is those little things. It's not even what we say. It can be just how we behave or respond in moments and so on. Yeah, great share. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that happens to so many leaders who are under pressure. They do feel, that anxiety and rushing to that meeting. I know they don't feel great about showing up late because you feel flustered and you're not really prepared or in the zone, and they matter to your people. They do matter. They say a lot, don't they? And some things might be outside your control, but that is something that is a great example of the kinds of things that we can adjust and respond to, and being willing to take action to remedy it. So great for that person to say that to you. I think that says much about them and you.
I think it does. Yeah, I think it definitely does. Although they did it in an annual feedback, so I was like, oh dear, you're absolutely right. But it's such a shame that you've waited. But okay, let's take it on board. But I'm still really, really grateful that they raised it.
Right, really useful.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So one of the things that we explore as coach leaders is the aspect of delegating, right? And how sometimes when we delegate, what we get back doesn't meet our expectation. And then many of us have a tendency then to step in and fix it, which is not where we want to go, because we remove ownership from the individual and deflate them. And they should absolutely own, things, fixing things or getting things back on track or whatever. That's kind of the big part of it, isn't it? The ownership. What's been your experience around delegating? How have you adjusted, if you have in any way, how you delegate now?
So I now overtly ask, how are we going to monitor this? Because in the past, when someone said, right, I've got this, and I've left it and then caught up several weeks later, the output is not aligned to what I was expecting with the output. And I think that's because we hadn't maybe come to an agreement of what we both made assumptions of this is the expected output. And I think that what helps me course correct and delegate, and that's why I think it's intertwined, is that monitoring, is coming to an agreement, going, I trust you, but so that we are aligned, how are we going to monitor this? Rather than me just come up with, I think this is how it should be done. I think it makes much more of an impact when it's a joined conversation and the person that you're speaking to who owns that action is coming up with, I'd like for this to be monitored in this way with these KPIs. And then you're checking in and it doesn't feel imposing. It just feels very natural because you're reconnecting and you're seeing the progress from there. I think that's what has helped with ensuring that we don't have to do too much course correction because I've had to do that in the past and those conversations are not very comfortable. So therefore I'd rather avoid it by just having a better understanding of what the expectations are and better guardrails to make sure that we've got check-ins so that we don't deviate from where we're thinking.
Yeah. I mean, yes, you're saving yourself time.
Yeah.
Right? By getting it more right in the first time around. And it's what you're talking about is the contracting. It's them owning how the success is going to be tracked, which is great because you can backtrack from there, can't you? And just say, right, if that's what we're measuring, that's fantastic because it allows you then to stress test the things that may get in the way of those KPIs being met. So allowing for that opportunity for them to state what needs to be done. It creates that opportunity for you to really get into the weeds and detail with them, how they see they're going to handle something, where they're going to, what the sequence might be of how they go about doing something, the dependencies, the risks that might come up and how they're going to handle those. Brilliant. I love that you take that approach because I hear it down the line when I'm working with leaders is, but people, don't seem to own stuff or always bring back something that isn't up to standard. And then we talk about their delegation and there's an assumption that they delegate really well. Well, I've given you all of this. It's obvious. You've been party to it in the past and should be straightforward. No, it doesn't quite work like that.
No. And I think a benefit that comes from doing that is that when that deviation is about to happen, the individuals come to you and saying, I've got a risk. I had one last week with, I've got a risk. I don't think we're going to make this deadline. And we could then have an open conversation of, okay, what is missing? And it's like this key decision is missing before we can progress. So that comes to light a lot quicker. And therefore, it's manageable. You can do something about it. With another person, it was, I've got a risk. I'm nowhere near where I need to be. I need an extra pair of hands. I can't do this on my own. I judged it wrong. I thought it was going to be taking this much effort, but it's a lot more. And it's actually affecting my well-being. And it's okay. I'm grateful that they can be open and vulnerable because that means that I can get an extra pair of hands to help rather than having an individual suffer in silence and then still not meeting it because it was practically impossible to meet it because it was just too much for one individual to do.
I want to just pause a moment and have you enjoy that because the fact that you have people who are coming to you and raising those things means you've set up a really strong culture of understanding between you and them, that you are someone that they can go to and be really frank with and have those conversations with. And that makes your job easier because you're not always on the back foot. And we do carry a certain anxiety when we think something's going to go wrong. It's always sitting there in the back of our minds. We worry about it. And the fact that you've cultivated this culture of people coming to you and being willing to say, there's a risk here, I'm stuck, I need help, is one of our biggest roles as coach leaders, right? Is to create that space so that people can bring, because those are all risks to you, to the team, to everyone else impacted. So yeah, I just want to notice that for you. And that's fantastic that you've intentionally created that kind of environment where people come to you. It matters. It makes your life easier. It takes the stress away from you worrying, are they, have they, and so on, because you will have a strong feel, and also knowing you have a strong intuition about where someone might be.
Yeah, I think what's been really interesting is it's not a straight line journey. So even though I have a team that I'd like to think trust me and have a good working environment, I do think that it can change from week to week, especially when there's more stress and pressure. So things like a couple of days ago, asking the team how everyone was and hearing, yeah, all good, but the body language was just not there. Or in one instance, it was dead silence. And it was like, okay, I know it's really hard right now and we've got a lot of pressure on us, and humor just makes so much difference. Like so much of the difference. We're in this together and it's really painful. There's certain words that we're all becoming allergic to in our team. This particular word is tokens. So now we can have a laugh about it, but it has been a really painful last couple of weeks fixing these tokens. Right. And so, but you can't take it for granted. That meeting in itself was an example that what people were saying, I think they were saying because they wanted me to hear that everything was okay and that they were okay. But their body language was telling me that they're not happy, that they wish they might not be working on this project because it's been quite stressful. So you can't take it for granted week on week, despite your best endeavors.
Yeah. No, you can't. And it is important to notice those things. Body language is such, and silence, or even if it's, some of the team are vocal, but some are silent. Those are all really, really important cues, aren't they? To pick up and probe on, or to follow up with people who may be a little quieter, because you don't know what dynamics are at play that are playing out with the team, or some friction and we're not aware of. So yeah, and humour is, you do have
if you can't cry, then you might as well laugh.
Right. And sometimes it's dark humour, because you all know what that's a shared pain, but a willingness to see it in a light that makes it tolerable, makes it okay. Yeah, for sure. Brilliant. Well, look, this has been a really lovely share, and I've enjoyed hearing how you're doing with and what culture you are cultivating and protecting and nurturing with people. Really lovely to hear. I do have one question to close on, and that is what's been your biggest growth moment as a leader?
I think my biggest growth moment as a leader has been trusting myself to begin with. So it's very difficult to expect others to trust you if you don't trust yourself. And it is knowing and being very clear about what your values are and being comfortable in living by those values quite openly day by day. And I think that's definitely been the biggest growth, is acceptance of myself, and therefore others can accept.
And I have to ask as a follow-up question, what was that about, the acceptance? What is that?
I think it's the shyness of being quiet, and I have this image that leaders had to be very strong and powerful and loud, and my style is really different. I am very comfortable now to say I lead with quietness, consideration, and genuine love. I deeply care about the people that I look after, and I'm not embarrassed to say that I lead with love.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that is such a big part of it. It's our identity, isn't it, of thinking we need to show up a certain way because that's what we have seen and that's what's been modelled. And in many organisations continues to be modelled a certain way, but actually there are so many ways of showing up as a leader and the best thing you can do is just genuinely accept yourself, because there's humility and learning in all of that, right? And when you do that for yourself, you can do it for others, and it's appreciated, right? I love it. I love it. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. And yet love is so important. And we have an attachment to people. And when it kind of has brought us full circle with where we started, which was the listening and getting to know your people creates that bond, creates a connection. And when you are able to have the most empowering, honest, truthful conversations, and you can hold that space for people, you can't help but develop that attachment for their success, for who they are, right? And even the most difficult characters to other people, actually, when you get to know them, are genuinely lovely people just struggling with some aspect, right?
Yeah, I think it's got its benefits and its flaws. I will not change now. It is who I am, but it does mean that my caring so much means that they become like an extended family, and I worry about them. But I also celebrate their successes. I am genuinely excited when good things happen. And yeah, it also means that I'm very stressed and worried when things aren't working out for them.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the empathy kicking in, right? Yeah, for sure. Nisha, thank you. This has been really, really lovely. I've enjoyed it. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you for talking with me today, Nisha. I've really enjoyed tuning into, and it always happens in our conversations, tuning into how you show up for people, how you listen and express your observations. I'm always taken by your turn of phrase or what you bring up in our conversation. So I really, really enjoy that. Thank you. You will find details of how to get in touch with Nisha in the description below. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please let me know with a like, a comment, and share. And if you want more content like this, then do make sure you're subscribed to the Leaders Who Coach podcast. I am hearing how leadership roles are both exciting and a little chaotic these days. And so navigating this change as a leader requires us to be more present, to have an inviting approach, as Nisha has been sharing with us today. Coaching skills deployed in ways that are specific, relevant, and useful to leaders, not coaches, to leaders, because they're different. There's different techniques and skills, and you've got different stakeholders you're responsible for and under pressure to deliver to. These coaching skills are critical to staying grounded and shepherding your team towards clarity and focus. So do take a look at Leaders Who Coach AI Enhanced. You'll find the Leaders Who Coach app in the App Store and on Google Play. Download it for free. Start your subscription. There's a 7-day free trial and you can cancel anytime. See you there or on the next Leaders Who Coach podcast.